the military-industrial complex.
I'm just a patsy.
I have a dream.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
Well, you have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so
Exactly.
that's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks.
And there it is.
Did that guy at the end say SPP?
No, SAP.
Oh, SAP.
He's the president of SAP.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I did and I did some research on him. The reason that he wears those dark glasses is because here's the story. He fell down a flight of stairs at his brother's house in 2015, and he had a glass in his hand, and he fell on the glass, and it almost sliced his eye in half. And he's had like 15 surgeries on his eye.
Oh, that's terrible.
No, it's a terrible story, but I can't help but think of the pictures of Harry Reid with the black eye and John Roberts with the black eye and Pope Francis with the black eye. And, you know, I just wonder.
Kennedy would have preferred a black eye, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many assassinations in your intro clip. Peter, I don't know how my sound is, but I can hear you so much better. And people were tired of me turning my head and trying to get really close to the phone from our last.
Yeah,
show,
you're a little muted. Do those headphones have microphones in them?
I don't know. So maybe I'll talk louder.
I can hear you. So
you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, all those clips that you just played in that great trailer that you did, kind of what I call them Farber, IG Farben. For IG Farben, I call them Farben builders. They're sort of like poltergeists. Do you remember the movie Steven Spielberg, Poltergeist? They come at you through the TV like monsters. But this isn't just a scary dream you wake up from. The difference between a poltergeist and a Farben builder is they actually go into your mind and affect how you think and act and move through the world. So,
well, you know, I might have pushed back before I found out. I think from Jay Dyer that the first 3 American presidents of television networks, so ABC, NBC, and CBS, came directly out of military psychological warfare operations. General David Sarnoff, Colonel William Paley, and I always forget the third guy's name, Kinter. I don't remember what his rank was, but.
Well, I can say in the case of David Sarnoff, he actually wasn't a general, but he made everybody at RCA call him general.
Oh no, he was a brigadier general.
Can we have a fact check on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's do a fact check on that one. They might have made him an honorary after, but I had always heard that. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, a lot of those commissions are commissions of convenience, right? Right. I mean, the way that T.E. Lawrence tells the story is that he was working basically for British intelligence, and they told him that he needed to have an officer's uniform, and he said, "Well, what rank would I be? I'm not in the army." And the general said, "Well, you're in the army now. You'll be a lieutenant." And he went down to a tailor's shop, and he had himself a lieutenant's uniform made, and that's how he became a commissioned officer in the British Army. Like, he didn't go to boot camp.
Yeah, well, that could have been. I mean, I know Sarnoff was working on a lot of stuff with RCA for the war, so that makes total sense. But you get the idea here. A Farben, a builder, Bilder, is something that comes out of the TV in our time, and looks like somebody's posting something there, and grabs hold of you and changes how you think about the world. 9/11 would be the classic that you showed. I think the Kennedy assassination, both that, and there he is.
Yep.
The Kennedy
So he's got a
assassination.
star.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The Kennedy assassin. I want to know what Taylor he went to, because I don't think he came up.
Exactly.
I don't think he came up through the ranks. Show me where he went to boot camp. He didn't come up through the ranks.
I totally understand. Yes.
His coming up through the ranks was tapping the telegraph key at Wanamaker's for information about
The
people that
Titanic.
survived the Titanic. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the RCA story, and they sat on television for like 12 years until after World War II. But anyway, the point I'm making about the Farben builders is this group of people. Yeah, these are all going to be general shots. This group of people knows the value of fear. They know what a fear pandemic can do. A fear pandemic can change whether people go outside, whether they interact with their friends, whether they're willing to accept vaccine passports, with a whole bunch of things. Whether they'll take your vaccine sight unseen, untested, experimental. Farben builders are really super important. And so that's why I go back to the source after World War II. And actually, he worked for Farben Builder even before World War II. The guy who started Bilderberg, and that's Prince Barnard, which is the first Farben Builder and the first psychological operations.
I'll grab
IG
Prince
Farben.
Barnhart. Grab Prince Barnhart's picture, but here's Colonel William Paley, so the president of CBS, also psychological warfare officer.
I was just going to say, all these guys are psych ops, and this will get to I guess you could say, go back to World War I and look at the value of propaganda in the war. War propaganda has been around a long time for recruiting posters and so forth, but newspapers really start in like the Civil War, where with the train service you could get daily deliveries, and war propaganda really becomes important, obviously with the Spanish-American War, the Yellow Press, with the Hearst organization, and so forth. But the immediacy of television and the internet, social media, has changed everything. These Farben builders can come fast and furious. You might one day be saying, George Webb, he's a conspiracy theorist. There's no bio labs in Ukraine. There's nobody named Kolomoisky with a whole bunch of steel plants underground. That's crazy conspiracy theory. And CNN tried to tell everybody that for almost 2 years. Then all of a sudden you wake up one day, oops, that's all gone. It's all true. And here's our press release to prove it. And oh, by the way, he underestimated the number of biolabs.
And here's the retraction.
Yeah, that's the retraction, right? Yeah, here. And oh, by the way, he was wrong when he said 16 biolabs. It's actually 30. And then, oh, well, wait a minute. I guess the other one, the underground ones, there's 16 more. So yeah, it's 46. But
Indeed.
So what I was looking at is I was looking at all these patterns, just kind of emerge in the Ukraine war, and everything is turning out to be an Alamo. There's Prince Barnard. He's an SS officer for special psychological warfare for IG Farben. He works for a company called Farben Builder. He works in industrial espionage. This is the same organization I believe Klaus Schwab's dad got into after World War II with the paperclip Nazis. Now, you could say what you will about this guy, but he's the guy who starts Bilderberg. And most people don't know that story, that a Nazi guy who was an executive at Farben Builder became the guy who started Bilderberg. And there's a lot of conspiracy around Bilderberg.
And his loyalty is based on expedience.
Money too. He was
Yeah.
involved in a big Lockheed bribery scandal to get the F-104 Starfighter into Europe rather than the French Mirage jet. But so I think he's a double agent, as if there ever was one. But my bottom line here is that we went through all of World War II from 39 to 45, saying Farben had coal plants that made Buna, uh, artificial rubber, and they also made gasified coal into into gasoline, and that's what Auschwitz did. So if you talk to anybody from 1939 until May of 1945, they would have said, "Oh, that's more George Webb conspiracy theory that there's death camps. Oh, George Webb again." And I don't know if they'd have said my name, but they'd have probably said something along the line of "that's crazy talk." When in actual fact, we found the death camps later on, right? So you can't take a situation that you don't know anything about that's underground in another country in a wartime situation and say, "Oh, I know everything about that," right? Because it's a movable feast. It's a changing, ever changing scenario. That's the big point I'm trying to make here. And if you look at what Farben was doing, which was maybe collating really critical assets, whether they be intellectual capital, Farben scientists, like people who came up with Zyklon B. There's the F-104 Starfighter. It was the Widowmaker, Peter. It was the
Yeah,
Widowmaker.
well, it's because it was designed to carry 2 Sidewinder missiles and go as fast as it possibly could to intercept bombers. And the reason that it became the Widowmaker is because they started trying to turn it into a multi-role platform, and it was really designed to do one thing, which was go really fast. But a lot of people, I read in the Skunkworks book though that Kelly, what was his name, the guy at Skunkworks, the U-2 is actually an F-104 Starfighter that they cut the little stubby wings off and they put the giant monster glider wings on, and they extended the body of it. But it's the U-2 was basically a Frankenstein version of an F-104.
Oh, I love that story
Yeah.
because I have so much U2 lore with Oswald and of course the guy from Connecticut, William. Oh, what's his face? I went and visited his house, and he has there was a ferry named for him for crossing the Connecticut River. He was worked for Alan Dulles.
There was a kid who was there's a house that the people were moving down the street, and the mom, the kid had grown up and gone to college, and they sold the house, and they were clearing out the kid's room and throwing everything out on the lawn for people to have. And the one thing that I grabbed was the little F-104. So I always thought it was a cool plane, but like
Very
I said,
cool.
you needed to keep it on its mission or it would kill you.
Yeah, Bissell, Richard Bissell was the guy I was thinking about who jammed on a secret budget, jammed through the budget to get the U2 done, so that we would always have better eyes than the president. We could always be that guy who could come in and scare the bejesus out of the president. Cuban Missile Crisis, they go in and scare the bejesus out of Kennedy with photographs. And this is what I call a Farben builder, and it's happened throughout our whole history. And it really does affect people because you don't know what to believe. With Eisenhower, you played the military-industrial complex clip. Nobody just even told him what they were doing. They just went ahead and did Guatemala and all these other things. Kennedy wanted to know. Kennedy hired people in, and you had the Maxwell Taylors of the world working for the CIA that were feeding information to Alan Dulles even after Alan Dulles was fired. So scaring somebody with intelligence really became, I think, the way the Nazis decided to play the ball game after the war ends. First of all, brokering the secrets. If they had, wonder weapon secrets, there he is. He was told not to wear his uniform after the Lockheed Starfighter scandal, but he went ahead and wore it anyway. He was very fond of it. This is the guy who starts Bilderberg, and this is where I wanted to just put my foot down on Bilderberg. People think I'm a conspiracy theorist about Bilderberg. No, 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 no. I think that they just build the bird. They build the mountain. The Henry Kissingers and so forth decide what the builder is going to be. And then the Bilderberg is bringing people in from all walks of life to start repeating it and just sort of becoming like an echo chamber, a controlled echo chamber, so that then you walk out and you go, hey, I saw the picture. Al Gore showed me the picture. There was the mountain that had all the snow on it, on the polar ice cap, and now it doesn't have any snow. Global warming. They forgot to tell us that there was a little portable nuclear power plant underneath that ice cap. It doesn't matter. Al Gore goes out and makes inconvenient truth. And so that's what I'm saying is happening in Ukraine. This $90 billion that we've sent to Ukraine, where we've convinced everybody that these guys aren't Nazis, but they're actually IG Farben too. They're actually the Farben building.
Well, it's interesting. I think I've told you the story that a lot of my liberal friends started to become aware that they were being lied to when the narrative shifted so quickly from COVID-19 lockdowns and 6-foot social distancing and masking to Black Lives Matter, and then back again. Like it gave everybody whiplash. Like they were going, what? Wait, why? And these people were like good social distancing, mask wearing, true believers that wanted to keep everybody safe, and that's why they were doing it. And then Black Lives Matter riots happen, and COVID's no problem. And then after that's done, boom, right back to social distancing. It's like that, they're getting whiplash. And I think that, to your point, I think that one of the things that's becoming self-evident every day, and this is the lead story on the Duke Report right now. Let me see if I can bring this up. Dr. Farrell pointed this out. It's a story on Natural News, I think. But climate change, Al Gore blames people, but NASA announced yesterday, and this wasn't an official release. It was like somebody asked a scientist, and it was like a casual kind of leak situation. And they're blaming the cattle deaths on the grand solar minimum, because what a lot of people don't understand about the grand solar minimum is that it's the solar wind that actually creates this kind of like bubble layer that protects the Earth from gamma rays. So they're saying that because we're in a grand solar minimum, that we don't have as much protection in certain latitudes on the planet, and so these cattle and chickens and birds falling out of the sky are all happening because of the sun, which I find kind of interesting, because it seems like human beings are really responsible for weather changes on the planet, but it turns out that the sun is actually killing thousands of animals right now, according to NASA. So who'd have thunk it?
Well, I'm sure that Greta Thunberg is going to take a vacation this week until the sunspot reduces in size or whatever is happening on the sun. But the strategy here for me has always been take apart the false narrative, pull back the curtain on the wizard, and then you win. You only need a Toto to know what curtain to pull on, and then everybody can see that it's all a big Farben builder. I'm pretty sure they called it Farben builder in The Wizard of Oz. I can't exactly remember what Dorothy called it. I'm thinking they called it Farben builder. But you will never forget now what psychological operations unit that IG Farben had. And if you have your own psychological operations unit, wouldn't it make sense to start at the end of the war, when you're trying to save all your money? You've got billions of dollars, right? Yes, Jay. Greta, you're done. This YouTube stream is done. We're done. You're never going on again. You're done. But if you have your own psych ops unit, let's see. There's two scenarios here. We lose all of our money, and then we all get hung at Nuremberg. Huh, that's not good. Or, hey, wait a minute. Why don't we just reclothe ourselves as Dutch noblemen, and we all, we go down to the Vatican and get a whole bunch of Red Cross passports, and then we all become the most important
Deutsch, Dutch. It's all the same, right?
Nazi schmazi,
Nazi schmazi.
So this is really, I mean, most people don't know who founded Bilderberg, or it was the same guy for the first 24 years, and the reason he didn't keep going as the same guy is because of the starfighter scandal, and so then they started moving it around. But the amplifying effect, the echo chamber effect, is what Bilderberg is all about. They're not saying.
You mean there was a collaboration between Nazis and American aerospace companies? Who'd have
thunk it? Who'd have
thunk it?
You can't shake a stick. You can't set down a camera trolley in L.A. without running into a Nazi business, Nazi aviation company that wasn't affected by all these guys coming in.
I don't. This might be a sidebar. I don't know if I ever asked you this before, but I always found it very odd that TRW, which is I don't know if they're still called TRW or if they're part of something else. They're probably part of something else now, but TRW was making spy satellites for the U.S. military, and they were also in charge of everyone's credit rating on the planet. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I think they bought Transamerica. Transamerica was my customer, and TRW was one of mine. And TRW, Redondo Beach, right down there by LAX. And remember, huge aircraft, Air Crash Corporation was right there, and full of Nazis there with Mayhew, Bob Mayhew, and so forth, coming in after World War II. But if you think about it, one of Howard Hughes's, speaking of LA, air crashes, the one I think that is in the movie where he almost gets killed when he's flying the plane by his own house, Leonardo DiCaprio, that was the plane that he was going to put in. I don't know if it was a starfighter or not, but that was the plane he was going to put in instead of the U-2. So the one they tried, look at Howard Hughes's plane that he crashed. Not the one he crashed.
I thought he crashed a P-38 Lightning.
Well, he had several crashes. He had
he had one crash because the P-38 Lightning had they had a shortage of engines, and they needed to have mirrored I think Rolls-Royce Allisons with counter rotating props, and they didn't have them, and the test pilot didn't want to fly it because they had two engines and the props were spinning the same direction. And Hughes said, "I'll fly it then," and he took off, and the thing rolled over and rolled in.
Look at the other one that looked like look at the one by the beach that crashed. Okay. He had a second one that he almost died in, and that was going to be the long distance reconnaissance plane. By the way, our good friend Bernhardt here also was involved in a P-3 Orion surveillance plane Lockheed scandal that gets kind of buried in the Lockheed scandal, but another Henry Kissinger plane that our good friend Richard Armitage uses for some drug running in Vietnam. So says Ross Perot. So yeah, look at both crashes. But anyway, Bob Mayhew, one of the key guys who knew the whereabouts of Howard Hughes at all times, and Richard Bissell. Later on, everyone said we made it up that Mayhew worked at the FBI and CIA. Well, later on, we find out that he was back-channeling information to Bissell about the U-2. And these guys, they never want to lose out on anything. If they can't do one thing with the plane, like you say, they change the way to go at it again.
Let me see. It was the XF-11.
XF-11. That's it. XF-11.
And I think it does look a lot like a P-38, though. Let me see.
Yeah, I think the XF-11 didn't have had a jet engine. I'm not an aircraft guy, so I don't really know. But I thought for some reason the one he crashed was Bob Mayhew. See, the thing about Howard Hughes, right, is he was the kind of like the Mark Zuckerberg of his time. He was laundering all of these aviation
Yeah.
inventions for, I mean, he had the money, so, and he had the interest in aviation. So,
Well, yeah, but he had the money because he had the contracts. I mean, it's kind of like, you need one hand to wash the other, right? It's like,
that's
I
it.
mean, this,
right there.
it looks like a P-38, but it's much bigger.
XF-11, that's it.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find that that's what he was flying one of those with a crash. I think that's the one he crashed down by the beach.
He crashed into a mansion in Beverly Hills, it says.
Okay, so that's the one he crashed inland. Okay.
Oh, look, we have a newsreel.
Yeah,
Here we go. Can you hear it?
Howard Hughes, famous flyer and sportsman, was dragged out of this wreckage of an experimental plane he was testing. He was seriously injured. After ripping the corner from two homes in Beverly Hills, California, the plane finally plunged into this house. The force of the impact virtually wrecked the building and caused the plane to catch fire. The flyer said that the accident was due to motor failure shortly after his takeoff. He failed to make a crash landing on a golf course. Dennis O'Keefe, film actor, inspects damage done the home of Lieutenant Colonel Myers, chief interpreter at the Nuremberg war trials. America's aviation trailblazers willingly pay the price in man's conquest of the air.
Okay, so there's only 700 people on the planet. Okay.
I love the fact.
What are the odds?
I love it. I love it. So Nuremberg, of course, there's 11 IG Farben guys that go there, right? And 8 of them are acquitted out of hand. 3 of them get very light sentences. I think Max Eigner, and then his, I think, Helmut Schmidt.
Are you talking about the doctor's trial?
No, this is the IG Farben guys. Anyway, they all got light sentences, and then McCloy came in and commuted all their sentences anyway. So 8 of them were acquitted right off the bat. People don't know the whole IG Farben, story. But again, the only reason that I care to retell this story, I mean, a lot of people like the Farrells, Joseph Farrells, have done a lot of stuff with IG Farben. I mean, he's going to know more about IG Farben than I ever know. I've done a little bit, but like, hey, U.S. needed the enriched uranium, and Degussa was going to give the enriched uranium, and we had to get the enriched uranium. So Degussa, we needed a double agent to get behind enemy lines in '44, and so that was what Prince Bernhard did through his mother, through some guy named King Kong. Who knows how he did it, but anyway, we got that enriched uranium to Los Alamos, and that moved up our dropping the bomb on Japan, so we didn't have to invade Japan and all this stuff. I mean, Joseph Farrell does that really well. He does some other stuff with aliens and so forth that I'm not so much into. But my interest is in seeing the pattern here. It's almost this thing happening in Ukraine right now is almost a complete replay of IG Farben in the coal mines in 1944, right? And we need to send trillions now. We don't have any time to wait. Putin's going to take over the world. He's going to recreate the old Soviet Empire. People believe this stuff, right? And this is
I don't do. This is a question that I've been asking myself a lot lately. It's like, I don't know that people actually really do believe it, but what I do think it does is it gets people to tune out instead of being. So basically, the right jab and the left hook. Do I have that right? The left jab and the right hook is fear, right, and apathy, right. It's about getting people afraid, so they're moving in a different direction. And then when they hit the cognitive dissonance, the thing that doesn't make any sense because it doesn't jive with the fear that they've already committed to, then they push it away. The cognitive dissonance allows them to say, "Oh, I guess that doesn't really matter," and then they forget about it and they go watch sports ball.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. I think you're right. Well, I just happened to be in Switzerland at the time all this was happening with WEF and Davos and at the WHO. So it's very near and dear to my heart. But the two people
Because you were just
that,
going on a vacation and you just happened to be there?
yeah, going to Kolomoisky places with guys pointing guns at me. Yeah, that was fun. Um, the Yeah, and thanks, Jack Posobiec did actually come down for one quick shot. And that week I spent in front of the WHO. Rebel Media did come down on Friday, to their credit. That's the only two media organizations that came to the WHO out of all the media that went to Davos. All of our senators went to Davos. And the reason
Yeah,
why I
but they
say
were
that,
inside. They weren't asking questions. They were being told what to do.
they hotbox each one of them and say, here's our plans for Texas. And then at the end, and here's our check for Texas. And then
Have
we'll
you
see.
have you watched the film The Forum, George?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they hotbox each guy and they say, here's what we think we should do in Texas. We want to build all these windmills with portable nuclear power plants beneath them, right? Because we want to cut power someday in Texas. Jade Helm requires it, so we got to do that. So, and here's the $18 million to build the fake windmills or whatever. And it was so bang bang. It was so going from Davos as a circus to keep people away from looking at the power grab in WHO, declared epidemics of any kind, like disinformation. Now Tedros can declare a disinformation epidemic, right? So that was the first thing. But then Bilderberg all came to Washington, D.C. the next week, right? Henry Kissinger, you just couldn't believe the lineup that came in.
Right.
Klaus Schwab, again. And I just want to show that these are the same people that orchestrated the scientists getting out of Germany, the IG Farben guys getting them off and getting them into our war industries after World War II.
Right.
Henry Kissinger was right there, and so was Prince Bernhard.
Heinz Kissinger.
Heinz Kissinger. And if you really want to go forward a generation, 2 generations, look at the daughter-in-law, or look at the current king, Prince Willem, lived right across as almost like a step and, I don't want to say step and fetch it, because that's a cultural bad thing, but just as sort of like a altar boy of Henry Kissinger, the priest, living right across from him in New York, kind of learning the ropes of international politics, Prince Willem. And he marries a gal whose father, Zori, I call him Zorro, Zori Gaeta, who was a war criminal in Argentina. And didn't just kill people in Argentina, the mothers of Sunday and all that. Had death squads go to Chile, had death squads go to a place called Nicaragua, 10 years later. So how does this happen in the same family, in the same house? It happens because of Henry Kissinger and Klaus Schwab. Same thing, Klaus Schwab's dad was the top contractor for Hitler in war defense. So
he made power turbines, so he was in the power business, and then later he made flamethrowers, I think. But he made all those Ruhr dams that were powering all of the factories in the Ruhr Valley. I believe that those were the Escher Weiss turbines.
There's also another Weiss guy, WYSS, that funds a lot of the Democrats in Congress from the Ciba-Geigy and all the pharmaceuticals in Europe. They passed a lot of money through this guy named Weiss. But he also made small nuclear power plants. It's the oldest thing in the book, right? You have an energy source. this goes back to the Romans. You have an energy source that your enemy doesn't have, and when the time is right, you cut the energy supply, or food, or water. That's just like Greeks did that, right? Alexander the Great.
Right. Yeah,
It's
I
just,
mean, and this is, I mean, it goes back really, really far. Carrie and I have been reading Maccabees in the Catholic Bible, and there's all kinds of kings that are going in and cutting down, burning the orchards and sacking the fields. It's as old as literature, right? So it's as old as man's history. So it reminds me of all of the food processing factories that are mysteriously blowing up right now. The like I said, the lead story on the Duke Report was all the cattle that dropped dead in the Midwest last week, and now NASA is saying, "Oh, it must be solar minimum."
yeah, it's not a virus anymore. That zoonotic animals don't get viruses anymore.
Yeah, it couldn't have been here.
Turn it off. I'm sorry, Peter.
That's okay. I mean, high octane speculation. It couldn't be a drone flying over them.
Is that high octane speculation?
Yeah,
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
So what I was going to say is Klaus Schwab's dad ended up doing small nuclear reactors. This is why the Maxwell Taylor thing is important to me, because one of his descendants, Bill Taylor, somebody in that family is telling me about Hunter Biden and using these blackberries for Ukraine and for dark stuff happening in, dark energy deals happening overseas. I think there's a couple of deals that Hunter did in Romania for some uranium and for some pipelines that we don't know about yet. I think there's some stuff that happened in Monaco that I was looking into that we don't know about yet. There's some weapons deals in Bulgaria with a company called Arsenal that we don't know about yet. So there's some other things coming. So not all the prophecy came true, but a huge amount of it ended up coming true.
Well, Monaco has kind of been quiet since Bill Browder's.
This is really what they're doing. They're really selling this nuclear technology to these rogue regimes like South Africa, like North Korea, like Iran, like Libya before that, like Pakistan before that, to perfect this and become the player in town for the small nukes. And the advantage of small nukes is if you hit one of them with a bunker buster, there's still thousands and thousands more that you have to hit, rather than a big fixed plant, which is like a cow tied to a post, like Winston Churchill used to say.
Right. So
Plus, they're underneath the ground. So I don't want to speculate on what's in Azovstal, but when I see people covering the Bilderberg, because it was in Washington, D.C., a lot of people came to Bilderberg. They asked me to come to Bilderberg. I said, well, tell me who, not go into Bilderberg, but cover Bilderberg. I said, tell me who started it. I don't know. You don't know? No, I don't know. Who started it? I don't know. Did they have any background on IG Farben?
Well, it was interesting.
Oh, come on. That's conspiracy theory.
It was interesting.
So I said, okay, until we get everybody learning about how Bilderberg started and the role that it plays in these false narratives, there's no sense in going and covering it and saying, oh, there goes the Huawei CEO. They're planning on eating children tonight. They're going to sell a new barbecue for drinking blood or whatever. All these conspiracy theories. Why not just go to the stuff that's out there, and I cover this in my Substack for everybody with proof, and learn about it before you cover it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that
all of a sudden they can't hear you, Peter.
Yes, I know you can't hear me. I should ask the audience if
you did something.
Okay,
something
I'll jump out and jump back in. Here we go. I'm going to remove. And now I've added myself back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, great.
All right.
I felt really powerful there for a second. I was the only guy on the Duke Report.
George, you're larger than life. I don't know what else to say.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it's all
So
good.
what were you going to say? What were you going to say, Peter?
I was gonna say that I don't. I'm not sure that it was it that. First of all, the Bilderberg conference this year was a surprise. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And on the first day, I believe there was one reporter there. There was because he happened to be in Maryland or DC or something. I saw him interviewed, and then he went around and did interviews with everybody else. But they also had built this fence completely around the hotel so that nobody could get in or without going through a security gate. So, here's the thing. Even when you do know that the Bilderberg group is happening, it's like it's of all of the things that are out there, maybe Bohemian Grove has more security than Bilderberg, but like getting any kind of information about what's going on inside there is tough, which is why I think that you do have to use the George Webb approach, which is that you have to look at the metadata. And I think that that's what your whole narrative is today. It's like you can't look at the Bilderberg group without understanding that the Bilderberg group was founded by a Nazi, and that the World Economic Forum and Henry Kissinger and probably the Council on Foreign Relations, they're all interrelated in this, and they are kind of the organizing committee for what's going on right now.
Yeah, and I think there's a committee within a committee, like you say, when Alan Dulles had this CFR, and it just was like an extension of the CIA. Now it isn't, but it's the same thing. There's a core group where you're going to come up with the false narrative, and then you want to amplify the false narrative. So
before I got involved in any of this stuff, before I started, doing like I did street art for a while and stuff, I didn't understand that like propaganda in Washington D.C. is called public affairs, right? That's the nice name for it. And I look at groups like the Council on Foreign Relations, and you look at the built makeup of it, and there's a lot of journalists in there, right? There's a lot of politicians. There's a lot of journalists, and I believe that the Council on Foreign Relations primarily is in charge of narrative control, right? So they have to come up with a story that they're going to tell everyone in order to cover for whatever operations the dark forces, the black ops, are pulling, in order to kind of get what's it called, social proof and buy-in from the public. Like, how do you invade Afghanistan and Iraq if you don't fly planes into buildings in New York City? Like, you can't do it, right? So, but when you do that, you have to have everybody with the same story. Everybody's got to be telling the same story. And I believe that that's primarily what like the Council on Foreign Relations does. And so if you kind of like, maybe this is an exercise that you and I should do sometime. We should probably think about it before we do it, but just looking at the metadata, trying to figure out one of the things that was great about discovering your work in the first place, George, was that you were going, well, if you're moving drugs, how do you move them? Do you move them in trucks? Are you moving them in uranium, recyclable uranium containers that have been contaminated with plutonium? How do you get from point A to point B? Because you're a logistics kind of thinking guy. You're always trying to figure out, well, it's one thing to say that there's drugs being distributed in the United States. Well, how are they distributing it? Are they using Evergreen Aviation, or are they using Barry Seal? Like, how are they doing that? What kind of planes do they have? Where are they taking off? Where are they landing? How are they getting past the radar? Why is the U.S. Customs ignoring them on certain days? All of those questions beg the kind of metadata. And so I'm not sure that I've ever seen anybody do that with the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, and try to kind of reverse engineer just based on personnel, on what you think the roles are that they're playing. I look at Bohemian Grove and I think, oh, well, that's a blackmail control. It's like a honeypot slaughter pen, a blackmail operation. you get all of these people in there, you get them to do things that they're not proud of, that are illegal, immoral, and fattening, and then you have control over them, right? So each one of these things has a component, part of the, what Catherine Austin Fitts refers to as the control grid, right? Well, the control grid starts at the top, and we're the victims of it, but at the top, it definitely has an organizational structure.
Well, my whole, I couldn't agree more that it's a top-down communication strategy. I just wanted to be very clear that the group that everyone is taking their sheet music from is a Nazi organization. I'm not kidding. This started from a Nazi and went to an executive of IG Farben. And the reason why I call this thing that has created the false narrative of a Farben builder is because that's exactly the company he was an executive for, which is the public relations arm and masquerading as a industrial espionage arm involved in all kinds of things like power to use stuff, right? CIA stuff. So what I love about the metadata analysis that's historical in this case is it's not conspiracy theory. It's, hey, here, go look up Wikipedia, look at the 101, 104 scandal, look at who was, I mean, there's tapes out there of him, Prince Barnard, and say press 2 for French, press 3 for German. It's interesting that the place that they had the first one in Oosterbeek, I went to Oosterbeek, near Arnhem, Market Garden. It's about 4 miles, 5 miles, something like that. So I didn't walk over there before I broke the foot. But I didn't have a car. But that was the headquarters of the SS. I mean, that was the headquarters. That was the headquarters of the defense that they decided to land the British first paratroopers. Okay? He had the first Bilderberg, the Bilderberg Hotel de Bilderberg, is literally like within, from the Airborne Museum, which the Hartsfield, the Pegasus Hotel, Hartsfeld Hotel, I can't remember exactly the name of the hotel, but that's where the Airborne Museum is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 2 minutes walk to the Nazis' greatest victory in 1944. And he has it there for many years secretly. If you go up just a little bit further is where the Dutch Royal Palace is, about 30 minutes away at Het Loo. And he's there. Prince Willem was there this couple of days ago. And I really think they got the dustbuster out ever since I went there.
Well, maybe you should just go back and hang out at that hotel, George. That seems to be where the real. I mean,
It's not the hotel. I think they had the IG Farben guys. There was a place called Farm Hill where they brought all the Nazi scientists near Cambridge after the war, where they secretly recorded them, the Farm Hill transcripts. This Het Loo is interesting because diplomatic immunity. You can't bust in to the royal residence. They run the country. That's
right.
where I'd put my IG Farben scientists. That's where the first Bilderberg was. First Bilderberg, right on the site of the Nazi victory in Oosterbeek. Market Garden. Who was the guy who planned Market Garden with Montgomery? Prince Barnard. Interesting. Interesting how the 9th and 10th Panzer Division go all the way from Hill 112 near Caen, drive 300 miles back across the Rhine River, and just happen to park in Arnhem.
Yeah, it was good timing. When the Oberkommando West was basically in kind of crisis that whole time, right? Because they were trying to deal with air superiority. The Allies said basically they could only move things at night. You couldn't move a tank on the Western Front during the daytime if you were Germany, because it would get blown out of blown out by the Thunderbolts and the other anti-tank planes that were flying around. So they were basically hiding in forests and then moving at night. So getting that 300 miles was a challenge, right? Because they weren't doing it during the daytime.
And you mentioned the Falaise Gap last time and how vicious the Poles were in just annihilating all the Nazis in their retreat. Who gets, well, first of all, on the first day of Market Garden, somebody brings in one of the gliders, one of those Waco gliders. I can't remember. I think maybe it's the British version of the Waco. Full set of plans over the next 3 days. You know, here's the drop plans. Here's all the drop zones.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The Polish don't get in there till day 3, and they're massacred. I can't help but believe that was payback for Falaise Gap.
Wow.
And if you want to prove yourself to be the Mr. Smarty Pants, saying I told you so, right before the parachute drop, like an hour before, a couple hours before, this is in the movie, you say, hey, wait a minute, I think I see some panthers in the woods. And you release that information. If you're the one who's already positioned the panzers there, you say, hey, I think that the panzers may be in the woods. If we'd only listened to Prince Barner, we'd have known about the 9 and 10 in the woods. We wouldn't have gotten slaughtered. That's how double agents work. They use these fillets, not fillets, back to back.
Yeah.
They use these Farben builders.
So it's the same. So it's the same Poles from the Falaise Gap that wind up getting annihilated. So this sounds like SEAL Team 6 that goes in and takes out Osama bin Laden, and then a few weeks later they're in I can't remember the name of that helicopter that mission that they were in, but they all got blown up in a helicopter. A few weeks later.
Yeah, August 2010 or
Yeah,
or 11. I can't remember. Yeah, I don't know if it was. I think it was the first Polish paratroopers that were attached to the first British, so that's how the first British would know. Browning, I think, was the commander. So anyway, if you go to my Substack and go to my Twitter if you want the real nitty gritty of all this.
yeah. So you're getting into your Substack now, George, huh?
Well, after the concealed weapons guy goes in to steal my server with my books and my all my videos and all my shows that I've done over the last few years, the ransom has been paid, and I've been told the ransom for the server has been paid, and I've been told the server is now in transit. So there's maybe good news there that we saved some of the books, and it's backed up. But I'm just saying all the shows,
Right.
2 years of shows down the train. So anyway, I got to go Substack. But every time, Peter, they go low, you go high, right? Say,
Michelle.
I'm going to just publish everything. I'm going to rewrite everything. I'm going to update everything. I'm going to get up even earlier than I do now. Don't let anybody else hear that around here because they're going to be angry. But I'm going to get up even earlier and write Substacks, and I'm going to make them better than ever. And my subscriptions are going up, and it's a beautiful thing.
So maybe I need to add a Substack to the graphic there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, you do a lot. I mean, your webpage. Someday I'll get back to the top of it. It's in my wish list. My bucket.
You've got some heavy competition there, George.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know.
Like you're not at the bottom anymore.
Yeah, I'm moving my way up.
You moved up. Like I think you moved down a couple notches today, but not very many. I have to go look. Yeah.
So what's the top 10 look like today?
Well, I was building furniture today, so see that piece right there. I built that this morning. Oh yeah, France 24 is going to be here on Thursday, and they want to interview me about the pictures that I took on January 6th that nobody in the government seems to want to care about. The provocateurs that we've showed them on this show before.
We said, Peter, there was going to be 6 laptops or a number of laptops in the Senate Sergeant of Arms in 2017. We showed the BlackBerry from Senate Sergeant of Arms in 2017, May 2017. Where were the laptops taken from on January the 6th? The Senate, they came out. I remember Merkley from Oregon said his server got stolen. I think Ron Wyden said his server got stolen. All from the Senate Sergeant of Arms.
Yeah, and
Isn't it interesting how these guys don't carry their laptops with them on January 6th? They leave them all in the Senate Sergeant of Arms.
yeah, and isn't it funny how I have programs. There's several companies that make them, but I have programs that I run on all of my equipment that if it gets stolen, it phones home. It's not very hard to, if you steal my computer and you plug it into the internet, I'm going to find you. Like, I'm going to know exactly where you are. And the idea that federal government employees don't have software like that running on their machines is inconceivable. As Wallace Shawn would say, it's inconceivable.
It is inconceivable. I sold software like that. Make sure your data at rest is always encrypted, data in motion is always encrypted. So it's very funny that just like the laptops, if you remember the Blackberries originally in 2016, Trump wins the election unexpectedly, and there's a burglary in 20 different congressional offices.
Right.
Remember, the Congress had the Blackberries and the Senate had the laptop, right? Including Joe Biden with his son. So isn't it interesting? The same exact kind of robbery happens, but this time they don't go to 6 different Senate offices. They all happen to be sitting on the Sergeant of Arms.
The one that comes out to the top of my head is called Hidden, HIDDEN. And it's a subscription service, and you install it on your machines, and it's hidden. You don't see it when it's installed, and you have to jump through a few hoops in order to get it installed. But once you do, it will phone home. And it works on phones and computers and all kinds of stuff.
Well, Peter, I can say that I wrote a book about that because I did write a book called At One They Struck. And I said Peter Strzok had an operative unit in Ukraine for dirty tricks. He used them in 2014 in Ukraine. He uses them in other countries like Yemen.
You know what cracks me up about this whole thing, though, George, is that like the number, you're we think of the people that are doing all of this stuff as kind of like a giant secret organization, and there might be a few thousand of them. Who knows how many there are? But the fact that they always go to the same hotels, it always winds up having somebody with a weird name, that you can't hide from in Google. It's just kind of mind blowing to me a lot of times that they just keep going back to the well. They keep going back to the same place, and maybe it's because I don't know, they own it, and maybe it's because it's been in their family for years. There's a lot of real estate. I took you to this one particular building on Pacific Coast Highway that had a tunnel running underneath Pacific Coast Highway, where I thought there were a lot of drugs and kind of contraband being run into this one particular building. And this building always seems to be owned by somebody with an Italian name. And it's funny because the real estate sign that's up on it now is not an Italian name, but it's kind of like if you took one of the names from The Godfather and you just cut the end of the name off, it's that name, right? So it's all in the family, right? The names change, but the bloodlines don't.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, there was a doctor that was stabbed in the heart not far from there.
He was with there was a restaurateur, Giorgio.
Oh, the restaurateur.
Yeah, Giorgio Baldi, who was stabbed in the heart with an ice pick, right?
And a doctor just happened to be running along and saved his life.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yes. So that's the whole OJ, Joey Ippolito stuff. If you Google OJ Simpson, Joey Ippolito, whatever way you want to talk about it.
And Lawrence Taylor, LT, right, who's driving the Bronco, lives right.
AC,
Oh, AC. I'm sorry.
Al Cowlings,
Al Collins. I'm
who I
sorry.
used to have coffee with. See, again, there's only 700 people in the universe. I used to have coffee with Al Cowlings. Like, how weird is that? I'm like Forrest Gump or something.
Zelig. Yeah. Well, I guess when French 24 comes in, you could say, look at this book. Okay, look at the cover of this book. It's called "At One We Struck." There's two guys who have 6 laptops. It looks like, or 6 pizzas, and all the other people that are there taking
Well,
selfies.
they're going to be filming me talking to you, George.
Oh, really? Oh, great.
Yeah, they're going to be filming me talking to you. So
See, they're trying to entrap me for this January 6th thing. They really want me. I was there like you were there, Peter, as a journalist.
You and I we're in very similar spots. In fact, I still to this day I'm surprised I didn't see you because you're hard to miss.
Well, I was on the other side. I was up on your end, there on the top side of the hill, and then I went down and I saw Joe Biggs go through. But I always think, when the French 24 comes in, just watch out. Oconus lure, or else the Steve Bannon.
Yeah, they use the line, "We want the truth to get out there." The truth needs to be out there, and I'm thinking, you're appealing to my something or other? It's like, okay, I'm
just
a journalist.
Make sure producer Carrie is there.
Producer Carrie's going to be here. It's like, I'm a journalist, you're a journalist. Don't blow smoke up my ass. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, take a look at this picture. These guys are wearing nobody else is wearing masks. These guys are wearing masks like this. Okay.
What, At One We Struck?
At One We Struck, the cover of At One We Struck, and look at the guys, and they look like they have 6 pizzas under their coats. It wasn't that cold outside, and they're wearing parkas inside.
It was hard to get a pizza that day too.
It was hard to get a pizza, let me tell you. So what the hell are they carrying? And
I literally took because I was afraid that this would happen. I took Lipton cup of soup and oatmeal, Quaker Oats instant oatmeal, because I knew that if I was in the hotel room and they had the little coffee pot, I could boil some water. And if I could boil some water, I could get something to eat. I ate all the instant soup, and I ate all of the oatmeal because that's what I could get. That you couldn't. There was like a long period of time where you couldn't get any food.
You couldn't get. There was one place that had some coffee, but your hotel, I think, outside of your hotel, but for the most part, you couldn't get the bathroom. You couldn't get anything to drink. You couldn't get a cell reception. The cell reception you did get would drain your battery at 15 times its normal. And we're just trying to cover the story.
And what about those giant AT&T cell phone towers that they had on either side of the mall, and nobody had any reception? they had
those are called collectors.
Yes.
Those guys are sopping up every IP address that was there. I don't know why they keep pushing this January 6th thing. It's so contrived. Okay, there were so many military ops people there.
Oh, well, I think the hypothesis that I've heard is that what they want to do is that they want to indict Donald Trump or something for treason before the next election so that they could take him out of contention. But
I don't think that's going to get anybody excited.
I don't even think that we're going to make it to the election in November. I really don't. I think that the other shoes are going to drop. The people that we're up against, they started World War I, they started World War II, they did 9/11. Like, they don't mess around. They've got some kind of monstrous thing in planned for us. And and unlike you, George, I desperately want to be wrong about everything that I believe. Like, I don't want to actually believe any of this stuff. I just do.
I don't want to believe it either. I don't make any money, zero, from my Substack. I don't make any money from books. Amazon took down all 50, so those are gone. All the stuff I wrote for Neighborhood News, they get every penny. So 7 books.
So how are you surviving, George?
Well, I am fortunate enough to uh, that corner right there where you put my
Yes.
Venmo and
Okay.
where you
Yeah.
put the PayPal.
Uh-huh.
That's how I make my money.
Okay.
And yeah, that's how it happens. And as far as France 24 goes, just having been in France for such a long time and covering, I actually tried to find the IG Farben location in France. I think we got close. It's actually not far from the Bois de Boulogne. And I'm going to just ask the French reporter, do you know where the Rothschild mansion is? And do you know how close it is to the French Ministry of Defense? Can you tell me? Have you ever walked in between have you ever filmed the French Ministry of Defense? I have, right? Right? Have you ever gone to the European Space Agency? Ever been there? Oh, I have. Okay. If you want to get to the dark hand, you got to find it first, you know? And so I'm sure hopefully somebody will send a message to your French 24 guy or gal, and they can do a little homework. But it is shockingly close, Peter. It is shockingly close to the Rothschild Mansion in Bois de Boulogne.
Yeah, the geospatial and temporal information is the stuff that like gets left out a lot of times, and it's the one thing that not the one thing, but among the things that I've learned from you, it's like you have to pay attention to where things are and when they're happening, because there really aren't any accidents.
Peter, I'm at the Canadian beach. I can't, Juneau. I think it was the Juneau celebration, where the Navy, U.S. Navy, did a lot along with the Canadians. It might be, no, it was Juneau Beach. And I met a 2-star general who was there for the ceremony, and his subordinate was French Espace, for the space agency. And I confirmed with him, both of them. I asked him about the 2-star about flying an F-22 and how he liked the F-35, and he kind of dissed the F-35, which I had hoped he would.
Yeah, the F-22 is rocks.
Yeah, it had real wings. What a concept for a fighter plane to have maneuverability. Anyway, can't beat the EW on the.
There's a great book called Boyd about John Boyd, who was the in charge of fighter development at the Pentagon, and the battles that he used to have with the generals. I mean, at the end of the Korean War, I mean, you see all this kind of glamorous stuff with Top Gun, and they took the machine guns off, and then they had to put them back on. But the reality is that the top brass at the Pentagon for 50 or 60 years now, they want to get rid of pilots. Like, they don't want pilots. They want autonomous vehicles that are robot controlled, and so there's been a battle and Boyd was like at the tip of the spear in that battle, and it's funny because the F-16 was Boyd's plane that they were putting all of this time and energy into the F-15, and it was very expensive. And he said, "Why does it have to have 2 engines? We can have 1 engine." They said, "Well, fail over and blah, 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 blah." So he, basically snuck the F-16 program in, and it wasn't going to get approved unless it had a certain range. And it blew all of the range requirements out of the water. Like it was way better. Also, the A-10, I think the A-10 and the F-16 were directly as a result of Boyd being in there. So I don't know if that book's on the Duke Report, but if it's not, I should add it. It's a great book.
Well, speaking of the A-10, I talked to a 2-star who works in Stanley McChrystal's organization, McChrystal and Associates. Remember the gal who got stabbed in the throat, who was working with the Korean ambassador?
Yes.
Rodriguez, or Wendy Rodriguez, got stabbed in the throat by the Korean ambassador, Harry Harris. But she was running messages between the Korean embassy and Stanley McChrystal. She worked for McChrystal and Associates. But this 2-star said A-10's got to go. He's lobbying on Washington to get rid of the A-10. Okay, and I met him twice, 2 nights in a row in Alexandria, Virginia. And I said, F-35. I mean, isn't that kind of like, I don't know, a missile to kill a fly? You're going to go after infantry. You were in the Army once on the ground. You remember that A-10 hovering
coming in low and slow.
and dwelling over the battlefield.
Loitering for hours. Yeah.
Yeah, with the titanium tub and all that. You remember that, don't you? You don't want that to go away, do you? Oh yeah, we got to get rid of the A-10. It's, I mean, everything they say about Washington, it's money and it's not the plane. We have a guy who has at Neighborhood News worked on the Eurofighter. Same thing. Frankenstein's Bride. I just talked to somebody who worked on a Joint Strike Fighter. 20 years. 20 years. Then became the F-35. Turkey with wings. Turkey with wings became the F-35. So if you put a bigger engine on turkey wings, doesn't that even make it even more unstable? Aren't you going to have even more crashes? I interviewed 2 different teams where they were blaming the ground control team at Andrews Air Force Base for a crash there. And they said, no, we did everything by the book. This thing is just a turkey. They fixed the problem, but they got a bug helmet on that thing that costs how much to develop?
$1 million. I think the helmet's $1 million.
Oh, each helmet's $1 million, but I mean, it's $1 billion to develop it. Like you say, they don't want pilots.
Right.
They don't want pilots.
Yep. So this is the book I was talking about. I highly recommend this book. John Boyd. He was the guy who was having this battle at the Pentagon for 20 years.
Peter, I know we probably are getting the end of our time limit here, but
we should. So but we're going to do this again on Thursday with France 24, right?
Yep. We're going to hold their feet to the fire, right, and ask them where the French defense agencies are, what part of town it is. We're going to have them walk it off, see how far it is to Rothschild Mansion and blah, blah, blah.
We'll see.
I mean, do they even know that? And I want to ask these.
I don't know. I don't know. I think you should get a whole list of questions for France 24 on Thursday. Everybody come in and let's. My assumption is there'll be a reporter and a camera guy like sitting on that sofa there because there isn't any place to sit at my place. Otherwise, they could be sitting outside at the window right here, like looking at me.
We could do an outside. We could do an outside show. That'd be kind of fun. So anyway, I look forward to next week. Peter, is there any
Thursday?
Oh, Thursday. Yes.
Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday at 5. Thursday at 5. Peter. Eastern. Tell me, I heard a rumor that there was T-shirts. I'm not kidding. That you could buy that said the Duke Report, and there was all these catchy phrases. Is that true?
There are. If you go to the Duke Report and you click on the shop button, there are T-shirts. Some of the Carrie's favorite one is this is a high IQ T-shirt. Like you don't see this T-shirt in a lot of things. It says that's parentheses sick. I should pull it up and show you.
By all means.
Hang on one second. Yeah, because it's one of these things that you really have to see to be able to understand the humor of it. More choices. There we go. La-di-da. La-di-da. Here it is. Pulling it up. Now I'm going to share it. Share screen. Now, your English teacher would be very happy with you if you wore this shirt. Right? And this is apolitical.
Could you zoom in a little? I can't quite see it.
I will see if I can zoom in, yes. Not letting me zoom past that. I can show you the design. Here you go. There's the design.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Right.
And you know what? You're going to have some people in the Beer and Peanuts crowd that come up and go, "You misspelled sick."
Anyway, this is producer Carrie's favorite shirt, and it's apolitical. It's just
I love it.
It's just a high IQ English shirt.
I love grammar shirts. Those are my favorite. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So grab a That Sick shirt and impress your friends and family about your high IQ humor.
Done. And Peter, I just want to say I've been looking at that chair back there. if I only, in my many trips out there to see you, if only a chair like that would have been available. Because there was a lot of times where you're editing and two people got the couch.
I did replace, yes, the sofa that I had was quite uncomfortable and it has been replaced. So this was waiting for you, George. Like,
Beautiful. I'm coming
okay,
out.
you saw the intro video that I made, but the deal is if you show up, we actually have to we started to make something before, but then we didn't finish it. So it would be good if we just made something that we could finish.
Yes.
Okay.
Done.
I'm ready.
Okay. I'm coming
Okay.
out.
All right.
This is my foot heals.
Okay. Very, very good. Well, I know there's a
Is there an
doctor
outro?
out. I know a doctor out here at UCLA. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Peter.
Talk to
What's
you
our
later.
outro? Can we do
Uh,
an outro?
An outro. Yeah, maybe. Let me go see. You mean like a video or something?
Yeah.
I probably have some. I could do your.
Not one of mine. One of your favorites. Could we just see the top 10 of the Duke Report? I never did get to see.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. This always happened on neighborhood news studios that I would get on the show and then we would never talk about the we would never talk about the Duke Report.
Because one of the things I do is I tune in to learn, like, hey, what am I missing? Other people, what are other people doing? What am I
right.
missing?
And I'm waiting for it to load now. So there we go. So let's see on Reclaim the Net. The UK online safety bill has laughable free speech and privacy protections. Technocracy News. Technocracy News is really a great website. I don't know if you follow it. Wood. What's his name? Patrick Wood. He's been reporting on technocracy for like 12 years now or something. It's a great website. Whitney Webb has her usual British watchdog journalists unmasked as lapdogs for the security state. She's always going in that direction. Yesterday we talked about on Monday. Who was I talking to on Monday? On Monday, I do a show with Michael Parker, and we were talking about how Lithuania. I don't know if you saw this story, George. Let me see.
This is the Braille embargo where they won't go into Kaliningrad.
Yeah, Kaliningrad. Here we go. I used the mouse that roared graphic. Yeah. Now, here's what's interesting about Kaliningrad. And I know you wanted to leave here, but Kaliningrad.
No, I'm fine.
So Kaliningrad is a cutout. It's this little space here that they gave to Russia when they got rid of the Soviet Union because it was their only winter port. It was the only port that wasn't frozen over in the wintertime. And so they've got some kind of a pass from the EU that allows them to go through Lithuania to Belarus and connect to Russia. Okay. What's interesting is it's right next to Gdansk, which Gdansk used to be called Danzig. And between World War I and World War II, a lot of people don't know this. Germany used to go up to here. This was called East Prussia, right? And they gave East Prussia to Poland, and they gave Germany a corridor to get to Danzig. So what's weird is that World War II was started in part, the cover story for World War II starting was the Germans said that the Polish were violating their ability to get to Danzig through the corridor. Now, cut to 2022, and Lithuania is telling the Russians that they can't get to Kaliningrad. This is the same event that started World War II.
This, Peter, when I saw this story, and I know Connie Bevan wanted me to comment on it, I immediately said, oh no, this is, I hate to say the Rothschild, teeter-totter, but if you're going to exert maximum influence, you want the two parties to be about the same weight. That way you only have to put a finger on each side to control which way the things go, right?
Right.
So when I saw this, I said, oh, here we go. They're going to take they're going to clear a corridor.
Right.
The reason why I really believe they have Kaliningrad still is the same reason they still have Sevastopol. Sevastopol, there's some argument because of the sub base. But it's because these guys had villas. All these KGB guys and generals had villas in these two places because exactly right, Leningrad froze over. And
Well,
but anyway,
well, winter is a bummer in Russia.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I'm just like they will fight. They will fight for that corridor. Let me tell you.
Right.
So this is like sticking it in their eye. This is sort of like a Berlin in reverse. Everything we went through already, coming the other way with the Cold War, now we're going to do in reverse. I think the Russian people are getting psyop too. You know, they're putting all their treasure in soul.
Oh, they are, and all of this is going on at the same time that Putin is going in lockstep with all of the World Health Organization stuff. So it's again, it's that left hand, right hand kind of like fear, cognitive dissonance, left right combo.
I now though I spent a lot of time in Poland. I now have a place I can go. A different place I can go in Poland to be on the front. I like saying I'm reporting from the front,
Yes.
So that this opens up a second front, and thank you, Lithuania, for giving me the chance to really get back in the action.
All righty then. Well, with that, we will say goodnight, and I'll see you on Thursday, George.
Thanks. Sad French. Bonjour to French 24.
Bonjour. All righty.
All right. Bye-bye.